Chris Farfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. It's a pleasure to speak to the estimates bill in this, and I'd like to, as many of my colleagues have, focus on housing. I would like the government to do more on housing with the money that it spends over the 12 months. Do I have confidence that they will do that? I have absolutely none. And that's because the government has been playing silly buggers with semantics and words over the last week. For the last 2 or 3 months, it can't manage to say the word crisis. But for the last 3 or 4 days, we're getting a little bit over the top with the word comprehensive. And when you say a word in Parliament, you should really mean it, and you should back it up with facts. So to think that the government's plan is comprehensive is laughable. And I'll tell you why it's laughable with a few local examples in Porirua, Mr Chair. If you come to Porirua and go up to Cannons Creek, there's a street called Castor Crescent. And in 2011, this government demolished a number of houses and sent letters to the people living around there and said, we promise we will rebuild the houses that we've demolished here for your community. And I would, if the Housing and Building Minister is offering invitations to visit places, I'd like to invite Nick Smith to Castor Crescent and see the abundance of houses on that land where those houses were demolished, because he will find what looks like a council park and not a bustling community of houses that they promised to replace. That's right. About a month ago, we held a public meeting in that community to say, hey, I know they made the promise. What would you like to see on that land? And they overwhelmingly said, hey, why doesn't the government stick to the promise it made 5 years ago and build those houses for our community? These are the kinds of people who have families living in overcrowded houses. They're probably the friends and family of people who are living in cars, who desperately want their friends and family to live in what we would call a decent house. So why doesn't the government, as part of its comprehensive plan, stick to its word that it made 5 years ago? It actually wrote a letter, turned up to the community and said, we're going to rebuild these houses. But there's absolutely nothing there at all, and that is a promise unkept to that community. Can I also just acknowledge the work of Housing New Zealand staff? I think they are one of the most under pressure departments in our public service at the moment. And if you're going to talk about starving the beast, this government is starving the beast in terms of what it's doing to Housing New Zealand. And I want to use another good example of some homes that have been, people have been moved out of it for what I understand is earthquake proofing. And they're now vacant, and there's lots of, and the houses have been boarded up. The problem is, Mr Chair, is that vandals have been in there. The houses have been broken into. There's lots of broken glass. No one would like that. The issue being, Mr Chair, is that is right next to one of my local primary schools. And the staff there have heard the kids talking about those homes, about them going in there and playing in those homes. Now, if it were the school that was ramshackle and had broken windows, we wouldn't let the kids in there. But these houses border the school, and for the benefit of Parliament, this is what those houses look like. Broken window, broken glass on the second story of those houses. And there has been little to no action from Housing New Zealand to make these houses and these areas safe. And I don't blame the staff there, because they are under pressure. When you have one tenancy manager to about 800 or 900 homes, they're going to be a little bit snowed under. But this is the result of what happens when you starve the beast.
But the time has come for me to report progress.
The House is resumed.
Mr Speaker, the committee has considered the Appropriations 2016-17 Estimates Bill and reports progress. I move my report.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The bill is set down for further consideration in committee next sitting day. Members, as we finish, I would like once again to acknowledge the fact that we are losing a group of people who have worked with us and have been our friends, some of them for many years, some in the roles that they are in now and some in previous roles and more recently in current roles. I'm going to profess a lack of understanding of the economics of the change, notwithstanding some understanding of the way government accounting systems work. I also want to note that over the years there have been some changes. When I was first a Member of Parliament, there was a messenger stationed permanently in the billiard room, which is now the Grand Hall, whose role it was to set up the tables and to play. There were always odds and sods of members around, and to play against the lonely members who couldn't find anyone else to play with. But the rules were, of course, that the messengers always had to lose. The other point which I have recounted to some of the people who are leaving is in my first term I used to act as a whip, sit in the government whip's chairs, and in the evening sessions sitting in the chair at the Speaker's door was a messenger who from memory's name was Trevor. Trevor was a standing orders expert. Probably there were 3 or 4 members who were better experts than he was, Palmer and Cullen and Muldoon and McKinnon. But certainly he knew more about the standing orders and Speaker's rulings than either of the Speakers, and much, much more than the Chairman of committee at the time. When I was taking or replying to a point of order, I would look beyond the Speaker or the Chairman to Trevor at the door, and when I was on the right track, he would just quietly nod his head, and when I was getting the standing orders wrong, he would shake his head and push me back in the right direction. I think, yeah, and I hear the interjection from my right. They still know more. So what I'm saying is that times have changed and times will change, but I do want to acknowledge an enormous loss, both of workmates and friends. Thank you. Because I've been told that we're not allowed any overtime today, the House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the 9th of August 2016.